to 7 on RTC, welcome back. My guest is Wafa and Haj Omar from the Kawakibi Center. She's a founding member. Welcome to our radio station. Welcome back again.
Thank you for the invitation and thank you for having me.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. I want to ask you about your background. It's very important to know the background of our guest.
Well, I started in the English studies. I studied English literature at the University of Manuba. I also did some time for research fellowships in England and in the United States of America. I was a Fulbrighter at Brown University. So by background, I'm an academic. I taught English literature and language for 7 years at the University of Tunis.
7 years?
Yes, 7 years. I was one of the first professors of English in l'Institut Supérieur des Sciences Humaines, Ibn Sharaf, where you are now. And then I changed careers. At a certain point in my career as an academic, I discovered that it was not sufficient enough to change the minds of young Tunisians and encourage them to open up to new ideas and new priorities and concerns by simply exposing them to Western literature. And so I decided to change careers and started working with an American NGO, one of the most important and the oldest in the United States, Freedom House. I started working on a program in Tunisia and Egypt called A New Generation of Advocates for Political Reform. That was in 2007. End of 2008, I moved to the Arab Democracy Foundation, which is based in Doha, Qatar. I just finished working with them after 4 years, and now I'm back to Tunisia, and I'm back home because I'm back to our center, Al-Kawakibi Democracy Transition Center, which is one of the first in the Arab region and the first in Tunisia that worked on democratic and still working on democratic transition issues. In 2006, when the center was founded, the term democratic transition was not very known, very used, and we tried to focus on building the capacities of the main actors in the Arab region, the political opponents, the human rights activists, the democracy defenders rather than the political opponents, build their capacities in anything that's related to the technicalities of democratic transition, how to be a technician of democratic transition, the tools. And so we started, and by the time
it was very difficult.
It was very difficult because we started from Tunis, and we were operating from Tunis.
How did the authorities accept your project here in Tunisia?
Well, first of all, we had to register the center outside Tunisia. It was difficult to register it here.
As an NGO?
As an NGO, yes. And so with the help of our partners, the international NGOs, we managed to do that. Now it is a center that is registered as a Tunisian NGO that we managed to do by February or March 2011. It was very difficult, but we managed. We succeeded, I think. And we were working in a very difficult environment. We were volunteering at that time, in addition to our day jobs. We were volunteering, but we worked professionally, and we were working with some of the most important decision makers in Tunisia now. So people like, well, people like Samir Dilou, people like Mohamed Lazar Al-Akrami, Shawqi Tabib. One of our most important and closest partners and experts is Lahidin Jourshi, with whom we worked on very important issues like that before the Arab Spring, issues like the dialogue between the Islamists and the seculars, or the Democrats. We worked with many names. I mean, I cannot now remember everybody.
You work in a hostile environment. It was in a way a hostile environment because at that time the very idea of democracy could not be discussed in the media. And even in civil society.
Exactly, but we organized conferences, workshops. We sometimes had to organize these events and our activities outside, but we always focused on the Arab region. So when we organize activities, we usually go to Arab countries that are more open, like Lebanon, Jordan, Morocco. And our focus was also to expose the Tunisian democracy defenders to others who had expertise because of the rather open environment in their countries, like the Lebanese, the Jordanian, the Moroccans, but also with the Libyans and the Algerian partners that we had, the Egyptians, and that helped us in our work later because it's more efficient when you work with people from the same kind of context, with the same priorities and the same problems and issues and concerns. And that, of course, also by exposing our democracy defenders and the people we worked with to the experiences of countries that are still in transition or went through democratic transitions recently, like Central and Eastern Europe, Latin America. So this is globally what we did before the Arab Spring.
What's your response to the people who are criticizing the center and the funding of the center? It's the case of 90% of the NGOs in Tunisia. Well,
this criticism is kind of legitimate because when you are unfamiliar with the kind of work we do, with the kind of circumstances in which we work, I haven't heard, in my experience now of 7 years, of national or local funding for international NGOs, and we are an international one. We are a regional one that works on the 22 countries of the Arab League, with a focus on Tunisia.
You need funding from other countries.
Yeah, you need funding from international partners, and this is how everybody works. This is true for NGOs from Europe, from the Arab region, from Asia. You cannot rely on resources that are non-existent.
Sure. We'll have a short break with music. We'll be back in about 2 minutes to talk about transitional justice, elections, and good governance.
Sure.
Stay tuned. So when I talk about transitional justice, the notion of transitional justice is relatively recent. The final quarter of the 20th century witnessed significant transitional justice experiences in many parts of the world. This issue of transitional justice has started during the past years to pose itself with different degrees in a number of Arab countries. But now we're going to talk about transitional justice in Tunisia. Do you believe that the process of transitional justice has been respected in Tunisia?
Yeah, well, let me first start by the work that we've been doing on transitional justice at Kawakibi Center. We started since 2006 by exposing the Tunisian democracy defenders, especially people who are from the legal background, the lawyers, the judges, to this concept by partnering with countries from the region, South Africa, for the continent, and especially with the Moroccans, because they are the first country to have started a transitional justice program. Yes, in the Arab region. And so now they have some of the most important experts on the subject. We started working.
And we have our own.
Well, we worked on transitional justice at the beginning as a mechanism towards achieving democratic transition in our countries, in Tunisia. We were talking at that time of the need to handle the massive violations of human rights. Of course, it depends from one country to the other, but in Tunisia, some of the massive violations of human rights were the persecution and oppression of democracy defenders, the absence of freedom of organization and of expression, and all of these similar issues. By February 2011, just a few weeks after the ousting of Ben Ali, we held our first big event on transitional justice. And many of the centers now working on it, many of the commissions are moderated and by the people that we trained.
You trained.
Exactly. Now we are members in the 3 commissions that were created after the ousting of Ben Ali, the one on investigation of Mr. Bouderbela, the one on fighting corruption of the late Amor, and the Commission on Transitional Justice. We are a member of the technical commission on drafting the transitional justice legislation. We also started a transitional justice academy, the first of its kind in Tunisia and in the Arab region, with experts from all over the world. And we trained in Tunisia lawyers, judges, high officials from the police.
High officials from the police?
Yes, in partnership with the Ministry of the Interior.
Is it a challenging task?
Well, it worked very well because they were working in our training courses together and jointly with lawyers and judges. And they produced strategies even to advance this concept and help promote it in Tunisia. But we started with the media. Our first training course on transitional justice was with the media, with a group of 20 journalists from all
the private and the public sector.
Exactly, absolutely. We try to include everybody because we felt that that the concept of transitional justice was not very much known, and that it was limited in Tunisia to two main components. One is the prosecution of the perpetrators, and the second one is reparations of victims. But other important issues, components of this process, are national reconciliation and also the reform of the judicial system.
But I think we can't talk about national reconciliation if there's no prosecution and no reparation.
Well, it's a global process. You cannot do one without the other.
I see.
Okay? So when you talk about, first of all...
Where's the first step?
The first step is creating an independent commission of transitional justice.
Do we have an independent one?
Well, not yet. You need the political will for that. We have something that has never been done in any country that has had a transitional justice experience, which is a ministry of transitional justice and human rights. And well, I mean, we're kind of fortunate because the person who's running this ministry is a former human rights activist, but also one of the people who benefited from a large, but from exposition to a large, not a very important know-how and expertise on this subject.
How do you evaluate the activities or the performance of the minister?
Well, that's a very tricky question because we tend to work as an NGO and remain neutral in terms of...
But you could be neutral while evaluating.
Well, the process is kind of slow.
Because you have to evaluate in order to know...
Absolutely, yeah. Well, the process is kind of slow. But we noticed the goodwill of this ministry to make this process succeed. In terms of, for example, participating in many of our not only training courses but also consultations. They made use of many of our experts that we brought from outside but also from Tunisia. We participated in many of the local consultations that they had throughout the country in order to explain and also discuss with the people, like the victims of the massive violations, the victims and the families of the martyrs, the injured, especially during the period of from December 17th, 2010 till January 14th, 2011. So the goodwill is there, but the process is kind of slow, and you cannot pretend to make a democratic transition process succeed without having a comprehensive, a comprehensive perception of it, including transitional justice, elections, of a new constitution. And these are also things that we work on and that we are very much
the draft on the constitution as well?
Well, we work with many of the commissions. As I said, the investigation, the one on corruption, but also the commission, the constitutional commission. And we are very much involved now in the commission on the Supreme Court, La Cour Constitutionnelle. So that's also one of our niches, yes.
We'll have a short break with Whitney Houston. She left us, but I still believe that she's here. He wasn't man enough for me. We'll be back after the news updates. Stay tuned. Wafa, I want to ask you about your upcoming events at the Kawakibi Center.
Well, we are continuing our work with the Transitional Justice Academy, working with the on training and building the capacity of many actors of the process in Tunisia. Now, today, the Transitional Justice Law has been presented to the President of the National Constituent Assembly, and we hope that the process will be accelerated. But at the same time, we are organizing consultations in Tunis and in different parts of the country, especially the small towns and villages that witnessed the violations of human rights during the last events that led to the ousting of Ben Ali. And we're also continuing our work on organizing training courses on dialogue and negotiation.
Could you give us an idea about this training?
Yeah, it's a training to build the capacities not only of civil society activists and media, but also the political actors. Yes, and we worked on that with some of the members of the Constituent Assembly on negotiation skills and dialogue, and because we witnessed that there is a lack of expertise in this field, but of course, because we didn't have the chance to do all of those things before, now we need to learn very quickly, and we have always needed to start our programs yesterday, but we are making our best. Sorry, we're doing our best to do that. We're also having training courses on good governance, also issues that are related to development, to fighting corruption. I mean, anything that's related to that huge and very important theme or topic that is good governance. And we're starting very soon in partnership with a Dutch organization, a program on the promotion of the International Criminal Court in Tunisia. Tunisia is one of the very few, one of the 4 states in the Arab country that has ratified the Rome Statute weeks after the ousting of Ben Ali. It was at the initiative of Dr. Tayyip Bakoush, minister at that time, but a very famous human rights activist and the former president of the Arab Institute for Human Rights. He ratified most of the important international conventions, and among them the Rome Statute. Now we have started organizing activities in order to promote the role of the International Criminal Court and the notion of complementarity between the Rome Statute as a mechanism to help fight massive violations of human rights, but complementarity with national law and legislation. And we're working with judges and lawyers on that. And we're even going to be involved in drafting and implementation legislation. And so we're very much involved in that, and our efforts are going to help Tunisia play a leading role in promoting the ICC as a mechanism, as an international law mechanism in the Arab region. Jordan ratified the Rome Statute before us, but they didn't achieve much. The other 2 countries of the Arab League are Djibouti and the Comor Islands, but also they didn't achieve.
It's our priority for these countries.
It is our priorities, and I think we are the most qualified at this point because of all the local capacities that we have. We are the most qualified to play a very important and leading role to promote this mechanism in the Arab region.
Do you need more people at the center? like social media interns or
We do.
students?
We do actually.
It's
We
probably
do.
a call for the students.
Absolutely, we call. It is a call. It is an official call for people who are interested in the work of international NGOs. Anything related to our work. We need law students to work on our transitional justice and ICC programs. We need people who are a specialist of social media and IT to help promote our work in Tunisia and at the level of the Arab region. Absolutely, yes.
And they can find the link on my Facebook page, RTCI, the English Language Program. I'm expecting your final message.
Well, our final, my final message. Do you want it as personal message or from the center?
The two. You could start with the center's message, and then you can.
The center's message is for the political forces, the National Constituent Assembly and the government to involve more civil society and local expertise in anything related to constructing and making this democratic transition process succeed. My personal message, and that of course to all my friends, the people I know and who are now playing a very important role as active citizens in this country. You know, we have always been lived as inhabitants of Tunisia, or residents of this country. Now we are trying to play a more active role as citizens, and we assume our citizenship values and principles. My wish for 2013 and the coming years is that we continue playing our role, continue exerting pressure to make our country move to on the right path, and also continue play a very important also role in helping, especially the marginalized groups and categories of Tunisian citizens that have been neglected so far even by the revolution and by this transition to democracy.
Wafa Haj Omar, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Wish you good luck for the Kawakibi Democracy Transition Center. The podcast and the video of this interview will be available on my Facebook page, RTC, the English Language Program. I want to thank the two maestros, Amir and Lesad Shbil. It's a great pleasure having you on the technical engineering side. Join me next Sunday for another edition of the English Language Program. I'm your host, Adnen Chaouachi. Goodbye from Tunis. Bye.
يعيشك. Merci beaucoup.
تحياتي.
عايشك.
Operator.